I can't believe it's still Drakenheim season. How long has this month been? If you don't know today's sponsor, it's a 5e Kickstarter for a book written by some sweet creator boys that I met at PAX Unplugged. It's a massive adventure in the ruins of the city of... well, I forget what it's called. But you can explore every part of it as you seek to repair, claim, destroy, or race through the ruins of the city. Make friends with the random factions, or get your butt whooped by these guys. After the meteors fell, things changed. Except not really, everyone's always fighting, but now they have magic rocks. Thanks to alien boulders from space, the economy is also collapsing. Check out the campaign with the links below. It's also magic and it rocks. Here's a video that... sucks. Hey, so I got to thinking about how mobility during combat is pretty, well, non-existent. Everyone swarms one enemy, getting in their normal ranks of beef boys up front and glass cannons in the back until the enemy dies. And honestly, the mechanics for running in a straight line or chasing enemies in the core book are disappointing. You lay everyone on a board, scoot one guy a few inches forward, and then draw him back when the party catches up. So instead of all that boring shit, I thought, why not create a few unique map types that complicate combat in a good way? And I got 5 solid ideas that might be fun to try out. So when we're looking at environmental events, ranging from a gust of wind to an earthquake, they all naturally fall in the same place as a layer action. Starting at the beginning of every round, or around that same time, something changes, which is incredibly awesome because suddenly every player has to be more engaged. If you end your turn next to the enemy, but suddenly you get shuffled around, you have to rethink your turn, and it keeps you on your toes. Us as Dungeon Masters all want our players to play more than they plan. So with that ruling in mind, let's look at my first idea. Moving parallel platforms. As simple as it is, there's a lot of diversity to work with here. We could apply the idea to minecarts, rock slide surfing, small boats, large mounts, caravans, pretty much any vehicle, makeshift or not. It's also insanely easy to craft for tabletop combat with minis. Just get like a paper cutout, a platform like a small book, or honestly my old sponsor Dungeon Craft made some great tiles. So looking at the function of it, let's throw a couple players on this platform and a few bandits on this one, and for the context we'll make it 2 rail carts on different tracks. The players need to survive for 3 rounds, at which point the tracks will diverge. I like having both platforms move at random, but let's give the players a unique move to make on their turn. So if they pump that seesaw thing in the middle, they move ahead 1d4 tiles. If 2 players function it, they get to move 2d4 tiles on that round. But if everyone avoids that on their turn, they slow down for 1d6 tiles and have to survive an extra round. Then at the start of every round, the bandits will move about 1d8 tiles closer to the party, which means they might accidentally swing too far forward, where both parties will get attacks of opportunity if they're close enough. This way we alternate between ranged and melee attacks, a party member can swap platforms, and there's a natural timer for the encounter. I'd have fun with that. Next up, an arena that shifts altitude at random. This is a bit of a weird idea, so let me explain. To handle something like this, have each player roll a die at the start of the round. Personally, I think that rolling a d10 and then multiplying the outcome by 10 would be the most interesting. Working with this idea off the dome, you could go up or down based on the roll. So if you're 20 feet off the ground and you roll 30, you're forced to rise to the altitude of 50 feet up because you can't go that low. This could be placed in a location where earth elementals suddenly create pillars, or maybe a battle over some massive air vent with platforms for individual creatures. Or maybe everyone's riding some weird creatures with like floating bladders that activate at random, I don't know. This one's fun because it limits melee attacks to brief moments. The sudden drops can cause falling damage to both players and monsters, and pushing people becomes a viable tactic. This could get pretty dangerous, but also super interesting. I think moving across the actual board would depend on the environment type. If it's pillars rising, the players would have to jump to random adjacent pillars. If it's like small mountains, just make it difficult terrain. If the players are riding mounts or platforms that are moving, have them make ability checks to try and glide from side to side. Cool, on to the third one. Alternating areas of attack that shoot across the map. Sort of like Fall Guys, that Halo minigame with trucks flying at a million miles an hour, or boss attacks in bullet hells. This type of environment forces players to change their positioning every turn to avoid damage. So on a flat board, beam attacks or something similar would occur in a line across that board. Then on the next round, the beam would either shift to diagonal, opposite to its last attack, or changing at random with an indicator like glowing walls. They could be water geysers, lava spouts, gusts of wind that risk blowing you out of combat, high velocity carts and horses, or a few soldiers with crazy laser beams and good formation. Next up, and a bit of a weird one, shooting ranges. Here's my idea. So instead of being able to always see enemies, the players are locked in place or on a rail, and they have to deal with heavy cover. Either use fog, burrowing enemies, a full laser tag style arena, a high-speed rail where enemies fly by, or a wall that releases enemies like projectiles, or a grassy field full of ducks. So each round, weak enemies and large projectiles appear and target the party. If the party manages to land attacks, the enemies die and the next round turns over. But if they miss, at the top of the round, the attacks and the enemies close in to deal unavoidable damage. Sort of like a zombie arcade game. They might just reach you and explode, either as biological weapons or like kobolds with bombs strapped to them. There's a lot you can do with it. And the last one, a source of moving proximity damage. I came up with this one while playing that Mario Rabbids game. Honestly, a lot of XCOM style games are great inspiration for unique combat. But there was a chain chomp in the middle of a fight that at the end of each round would close in on the nearest creature and deal a hefty chunk of damage. So in this type of encounter, you could use an Orb of Annihilation, an ancient construct, a minor deity, a raging elemental, a ritual summoning, or something else that's simple, strong, and out of the party's league. The players have to essentially kite around this source of death, poking enemies and surviving attacks until the damage source just devours everything. Then either have them get the hell out of there while the thing destroys its environment, or find some way to subdue it once the rest of the enemies are dead. Bam, that's 5 of them out of the way. All sounds super fun, honestly. Go try them out, see how they work, and let me know what unique twists that you would put on them. Or what other ideas you have for stuff like this. Combat's gotta change up a bit, and this was pretty fun to make. Thanks for watching, check out that dang old book, and get up on out of here before I put my cleats on and punch you over my fence.